out the motherfucking pack.
Right out
But
the
niggas don't know
pass.
how to act.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to yet another NFL draft video. We're at the top 32 today, and I'm gonna keep it real. I figured by this point I would have so many more draft videos out, like I'd have my top five QBs, running backs, receivers, all that. But I don't know. I'm gonna keep in the next 30 days after the draft, I'm probably gonna have like 20 draft related videos out. So it's like, I don't know. I'm just gonna be talking about the draft before and after, I guess. So, anyways, I'm not gonna hold y'all. We got the top 32 today. Let's get right into it. Number one, as the best player in the entire draft class, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. He is a generational talent that I have never seen at wide receiver. And what I mean by that is I wholeheartedly believe that if he would have played in the NFL like if he would have foregone his junior season, which he was not allowed to do, if he was able to come to the NFL out of his sophomore year, I wholeheartedly believe he would have been 1,000-yard receiver last season in the NFL. That's just how good I think he is. I think he's a level above college. I think he's NFL level because his father obviously is a Hall of Fame receiver. He has been learning skills since a child, and not to mention his genetics are ridiculous. His height, speed, athleticism, his body control when he's in the air is like freaky. Like it's like weird to watch. It's like I've never seen anything like it. So, he is a generational talent and he wholeheartedly, I believe wholeheartedly, he should be the number one overall pick if there weren't, good quarterbacks in this class. But yeah, I think the best fits for him in terms of making the most money, in terms of going the highest pick, but also going to a team that I think would use him well. Obviously, Chicago pairing with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore would be a great situation. But I do think the Cardinals going there, being their number one receiver, they got Michael Wilson, they got Trey McBride, the tight end, they got guys like Greg Dortch. They have some options already, and if you just add Marv to that, I think it would still be a good situation. So I do predict he's going to go to the Cardinals at number four. And if you look at his stats, man, the guy, he's NFL ready. 29 touchdowns last two seasons as a receiver. And wow, last season, by the way, not having a good quarterback at all last season. Kyle McCord, and he still managed to get 15 total touchdowns while not even playing in their bowl game either. So yeah, Marvin Harrison, he's a special, special prospect that we probably won't see again in terms of his caliber for a while. But yeah, he is the best player in the entire draft class. I can say that confidently. Next up, we got Caleb. Caleb is my number two best player in the entire class. He is QB1. And I thought about putting him number one, but the longer I thought about it, I really don't think Caleb is that, how do I put this? I don't think he's that generational of a prospect. Like, I don't think he's one of those guys where it's like, man, we're not going to see another Caleb Williams for 10 years. I think he's a great prospect. I think he's the best quarterback in the class. I think he'll be a very, very good NFL quarterback. But when I look at his frame, for example, like 6'1", 214, he doesn't like stand out in any way in terms of his size, in terms of his speed. He's athletic. He's very athletic for a quarterback, but he's not like special speed or anything like that. Like, you know what I mean? So in terms of his frame, his physical build, I really don't think he stands out. What he stands out with is his skills, right? His skills and his traits. And while his arm talent is incredible, his ability to extend plays is incredible. Um, his use of buying or his way of buying time and using his legs to pick up first downs is incredible. What I really, as the process has gone on, what I really don't like about Caleb is sorry, I'm talking too fucking fast. How often he relies on the Superman play or extending the play beyond where it needs to be. He is going to get sacked a lot in the NFL by trying to do what he did at USC. And I think that's going to be a problem for him. It's going to be a tough adjustment to learn to really just stay in the pocket as long as you can. I think he's got the Kyler Murray effect in a way where he just looks to get out of the pocket as soon as there's any type of pressure. And you got to be able to stand tall and make difficult throws in the NFL because a lot of plays don't design for a quarterback to leave the pocket. So it's going to lead to a lot of sacks, a lot of turnovers, I think, early on. But I do think he'll be able to overcome that and adjust the NFL level. I think the Bears obviously are the best situation. I think he's going to go number one. He deserves to go number one. But I think the Commanders also, like in just in some crazy world where another team trades up to, I don't know. I had to put a second team. It's the Bears, but if I had to pick a second team in that top area, it would be the Commanders. And taking a look at Caleb's stats, right? Obviously, last season, an amazing Heisman season. I don't know if last season for Caleb was better than Jaden Daniels this season. I'm not sure. I'm inclined to say Jaden Daniels because he played in the SEC and Caleb played in the Pac-12. But I don't know. They were both legendary Heisman seasons, in my opinion. But there was a significant drop off this season for Caleb. Obviously, two less games, but I don't think two games equates for 11 touchdowns and 1,200 yards. So, but that's expected. A lot of players because a lot of talent. The roster at USC was worse last year, this year, in my opinion. So he lost a lot of talented players and he got worse as a result. But he's still the number one overall pick. I have no doubt about that. Next up, we got Brock Bowers. And by the way, this picture quality is so fucking awful. I apologize about that. all of these fucking pictures I found fucking suck, by the way. But anyways, we got Brock Bowers at number 3. Brock Bowers is arguably the best tight end prospect ever. He is easily the best I've ever seen, better than Kyle Pitts because Kyle Pitts was one dimensional. He is an amazing receiver, but he's honestly more of a receiver than a tight end. He's just a really, really big receiver. Brock Bowers is an amazing receiver, but also a great blocker in the run game. Um, and what I think is so special about him, it's similar to Marvin Harrison. I honestly think Brock Bowers could have went to the NFL after his freshman year in college. I think as a 19-year-old in the NFL, he would have been a starter. I think as a 20-year-old in the NFL, he would have been a top 5 tight end. I think as a 21-year-old in the NFL, he's going to come in and possibly be a Sam Laporta situation that we saw for Detroit last season. So I just think he's that caliber of guy in the same class as Marvin Harrison. And if we're talking about fits, it's pretty simple. It would be teams that already have established quarterbacks. So that's the Chargers and the Jets. Do I think the Commanders could use him? I don't think they have a quarterback. Do I think the Patriots could use him if they trade down? Maybe. I really don't buy all of this talk that Brock Bowers is going to fall out of the top 5, the top 7. I think he's going extremely high. I just don't think he's falling. Like every mock draft now has Brock Bowers going at 10, 11, something like that, right? I just don't believe it. And I don't think the Chargers are going to trade down either. I do have him going to the Chargers at 5. It is my opinion that giving a quarterback a generational tight end in Brock Bowers would be better than giving him a guy like Malik Nabers, for example. I think there's more good receivers down the board than there are Brock Bowers. You know what I mean? If you look at his stats, man, yeah, probably the greatest tight end in college history. Obviously, back-to-back champion. Would they have won the college football playoff if he was fully healthy this year? I'm not sure. That's a question that was to be determined, but man, incredible college career, and he deserves to go as high as possible. Drake May at 4. Honestly, I'll talk about narratives a little bit in this video because for every draft, we seem to have these certain groups of guys that just get shit on the entire draft process. And then you got these other guys like JJ McCarthy, for example, that just get boosted and glazed to the sky. And I don't understand why that happens. I think it has some stuff to do with people's like agents like paying for what people say. I think that's what it is. I honestly think there's some type of scheme going on where agents or certain groups of people pay these draft people and these analysts to say good things about certain players. Because honestly, if you think JJ McCarthy is even in the same world as a guy like Drake May, you're fucking blind. Drake May came in as a redshirt freshman and put up one of the most impressive statistical seasons I've ever seen with not a great roster around him. He had some good receivers, but not a great roster, a horrible defense. He is extremely young. His frame is massive. He's arguably, he's besides Jaden Daniels, he's the most athletic quarterback in his class. He's one of the biggest QBs in the class. He has a great arm. Like, man, Drake May is the number 1 overall pick in 50% of these draft classes. Is he better than Bryce Young or CJ Stroud as a prospect? I think yes, honestly. And that might sound crazy, but in terms of his frame and his athleticism and what he does with his arm, it's a toss-up, honestly, between him, Bryce Young, and CJ Stroud as prospects. Let's get into his stats, man. Before we get into his stats, his best fits are the Commanders, I think. I think they have enough. I think they had a good offseason compared to the Patriots. By the way, not a single player here is going to have best fit Patriots. They suck. They're awful. But the Commanders, I think they did a little bit this offseason to help him out, especially with that offensive line. They have a couple of receivers I like, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin. They got Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. So I think they got a little bit there for Drake May. Also, the Vikings, they're the best fit for any quarterback, right? With their receivers already. They got Aaron Jones at free agency. So the Vikings are the best fit for any of these young guys besides the Bears. But I think the Commanders are the most realistic spot for Drake May. I do think that's where he's going to go. But look at those stats, man. As a red shirt freshman, man, a redshirt freshman, 5,000 yards, 45-7 touchdown interception ratio. And by the way, that touchdown interception ratio includes rushing touchdowns, so is the yards. But man, last season, I'll be honest. I'll be totally honest. Last season was disappointing. I wanted to see a lot more out of Drake May. I did not see that. Um, the receiving core wasn't as good, but once he got Devontae Walker back, there was really no excuses. He had a couple bad games last season, brutally honest. So similar to Caleb, he took a big drop, but I think his was more noticeable than Caleb's in a way. And Caleb had some bad games too. Let's not get twisted about that. But Drake May also did take a step backwards. Um, yeah, I do think, like I said, he is an amazing prospect. He's in that tier, man, where I see a guy and I'm like, yeah, that's a number one overall pick, and he's the fourth best player in this class. So that's how stacked this class is at the top, honestly. Moving on, though, we got Joe Alt. According to a lot of people, Joe Alt is a generational tackle. I say that word a lot, but that's how good this class is. Joe Alt is a tackle that you don't see a lot. His age, his size, his like, he doesn't make the same mistakes that a lot of these other guys make that I'm going to talk about in this video. Like, he doesn't have a lot of the same red flags that a lot of these other guys have in this video. The options are the Titans, the Giants, and there's no way I think he falls to the Jets number 10. So he's going to go in that 6 to 7 range. So it's just between which one of those teams decide to choose him. I think the Giants should, honestly. I don't think they should go receiver. I think they should go Joe Alt and then receiver with their second round pick. But they want receiver for some reason. So I think it's going to be the Titans at 7. And if you look at, when I talk about this PFF grade, keep in mind, please remember, when we get to all these other tackles, please keep in mind Joe Alt's PFF grade, because he might be the only guy in general to get above a 90, and he got above a 90 in back-to-back seasons, okay? He is a left tackle. He's been playing left tackle. He's going to play left tackle in the NFL day one, I believe, and he's allowed one sack in, what's that? Close to 1,600 snaps, one sack in 25 games. Like, man, that's so impressive, man. And he's played in those 25 games, I believe he's played Ohio State twice, Clemson twice. Like, great player, man. Dominant player. It's so many guys. Like, the best quarterback in this class, generational. The best wide receiver in this class, generational. Best tight end, generational. Best tackle, like, this class is just absolutely loaded at the top. I wish my Seahawks would have had a top 5 pick this year instead of last year. No disrespect to Devon Witherspoon. But number 6, we got Rome Odunze. I do believe he is better than Malik Nabers. I just think when I look at Rome Odunze play, I just think he does things at the NFL level more than Malik Nabers. His size, obviously, is what sets him apart. He is a massive, I'm going to say massive, 6'3", 215. He is so difficult to guard. And he has certain plays. Like, Washington, their go-to play, I saw it with my own eyes. Their go-to play on 4th down and like medium was a 20-yard jump ball on the left sideline to Rome Odunze. That's how confident they were in his ability to go win 50-50 balls. You hear that a lot. This guy, he turns 50-50 balls to 70-30 balls. Rome Odunze turns it to 90-10 balls, okay? When he goes up for the ball, it's either going to be pass interference or he's coming down with it, honestly. He has great hands, great body control. He's fast as shit. So he's one of the best deep threats in the whole class. But he's also a guy where you can give him the ball short and watch him take it 40 plus yards, like, after the catch. So he is completely well-rounded in that sense, while also having that dominant size and contested catch ability that sets him apart from anybody else in the class. I do think he's going to go to the Bears at number 9. I think there's no way he slips out of the top 10, but I don't think he gets chosen over Malik Nabers. I do think Nabers is going to go higher than him. But, man, just look at those stats, man. 22 touchdowns in 27 games. Man, him and Michael Penix was such an elite duo. I almost want to see, this would be crazy, I almost want to see the Vikings draft him at like 11 and then draft Penix at 23. Like, that would actually just be the dream. Like that would be oh my that would be insane. And I'm thinking about it, but I doubt it. There's no way that happens. But I wish those two could stay together because they were such a great tandem. But Rome Odunze, Caleb Williams, that sounds like another great tandem in the NFL. Next up, we got Malik Neighbors. Look, I think he is in that exact same class as Rome Odunze. I don't think there's much separation. There are so many things Malik Neighbors does so well. I just when I look at his frame compared to Rome Odunze's frame, I think it's going to be harder. Malik Neighbors is going to have to do more, I think, in order to like Rome Odunze is going to walk through the door and it's gonna be easier for him because of his size. You know what I mean? Malik Neighbors, he's gonna have to work a little harder. More of his catches are gonna have to come yak yards, right after the catch, stuff like that. So, and I think that's what he's great at. He's so explosive. Get the ball in his hands wherever on the field, and he's going to turn it into a big explosive play. I do think his best fits, are obviously the Chargers with Justin Herbert, and also the Giants to be their number one receiver. That'll be a little more difficult because the Giants don't have a lot figured out right now. But pair him with Jalen Hyatt, man, that's dangerous. Malik Neighbors, his game is explosivity down the field, get the ball in his hands, and watch him go to work. You see the jump. The crazy thing is his jump from touchdowns from 3 to 14. That's kind of crazy. If a guy is not really that good at getting in the end zone, you really don't see him like flip that switch all of a sudden. But Malik Neighbors, man, 11 more touchdowns in the previous season, as well as obviously another 550 yards. So, in less games, but think about that. Played one less game than last season, had 550 more yards and 11 more touchdowns. Yeah, he is that guy. He was arguably, I don't know. Last season, between him, Marvin, Rome, I have no idea who you should have given the Biletnikoff to, but he had a great case for it, man. He had an excellent case for the Biletnikoff, and I definitely think there's no way he gets out of the top 6. Next up, we got Dallas Turner, the best defensive player in this class, in my opinion. And by the way, if you notice in this whole video, like all these guys I have in the top, I feel like this is about where they're gonna go. Like honestly, I think my top 8 is all going to get drafted in the top 9, if that makes sense. So it's like I feel like it's pretty lined up, from like where they're going to get drafted and where they actually are in terms of the class overall, if that makes sense. But I have Dallas Turner as the best defensive player in this whole class, the best edge. And I'll say this about Dallas Turner. I don't think he's going to come out right away and be the best player out of the class. Like he might have a Trayvon Walker type start, you know what I mean? Where he's not disappointing as a rookie, but he's not as impressive as some of the other guys. But as his career progressed, I know it's only been 2 years for Trayvon Walker, but we saw a noticeable jump right from year 1 to year 2. I think that's maybe what's going to happen for Dallas Turner because he's a lot younger than some of these other guys. Look at Jared Verse, look at Leatu Latu. He's younger than those guys, but I think his potential is just through the roof athletically for his size, speed. Like he was the guy this class. He was the Nolan Smith that kind of blew everybody away with his athleticism. And his potential, I just feel like, is so much higher than these. Not so much higher, but he's just long term. I really am going to put my money on Dallas Turner to be the best defensive player from this class. In terms of his best fits, I think it has to be the Falcons at number 8, but the Bears at 9. I could see taking him if they value their defense, more than getting another receiver for Caleb. Then I think Dallas Turner would be a very good pick for them. Horrible picture quality, but take a look at his career at Alabama. He did drop from his freshman to sophomore season, which I was, disappointed about. He still had Will Anderson beside him, so I really didn't understand why the production took such a drop in more games, by the way. So I was really disappointed in Dallas Turner last season, but he stepped it up this season and had his best season of his career without Will Anderson beside him. And, he showed everybody why he deserves to go in the top 10. And I respect that from him. And I do think he played well enough. He showed enough on tape and at the combine to where he deserves to go in the top 10 to the Falcons at number 8. Next up, Leatu Latu. I do think Leatu Latu is one of the most underrated players from this class. I think he's one of the best players from this class. And I think he gets overlooked maybe due to his age. He had a bad injury history. Like he missed like multiple years, but then he came back and he's been perfectly healthy the last 2 years, so think Michael Penix. But his size is freakish. He is a pure D end. I don't really see him as an outside linebacker like I see more for Dallas Turner. But I do think Leatu Latu is going to fall down the board. I don't see him going in the top 10. I really don't, which I think he deserves to. But he might even fall out of the top 15. And if he falls into like the later teens or even the 20s, we're talking about potentially the steal of the whole draft for whoever picks him up. So I think the Vikings at 11 or 23 would be a good spot for him. I would love my Seahawks to somehow get him at 16, or if we trade down, and then the Bucks in the 20s. Three great spots for him where I think he'd come in and start day one. And I think Laiatu Latu, take a look at his stats right here. I think Laiatu Latu is going to be the bet. Mark this down. I think Laiatu Latu is going to be the best edge rusher out of this entire class year one. I think he's going to, if I did an all rookie first team, I think he'd be on that all rookie first team at the end of next season, because I think he's going to come in right away. Look at what he's done the last 2 years at UCLA, by the way. 25 games, 23 and a half sacks, right? Like he's dominant in college. I think that's going to transfer over. His use of both power and speed off the edge is different. He is experienced. He looks like a technician out there, and nobody could stop him in the Pac-12 last season. So I think that's going to translate, and in year one, he's going to be this dominant guy. Okay, like I could easily see 8.5 sacks, 20 QB hits. You know what I mean? Like I think he could be on the verge of a Pro Bowl as a rookie. So keep an eye out for Laiatu Latu. I think I just had the Vikings because they have two opportunities to take him at 11 or 23. You know what I mean? So I think it's a greater chance of them taking him. But he could go anywhere, man. Any team, literally any team in the entire class could add Laiatu Latu. That's how good he is. Next, we have Jayden Daniels. This is the first guy where there's going to be a massive jump from where I think he is and where I think he's going to get taken. And what I mean by that is he's just, he's a really, really good quarterback, but I don't see the same arm talent from Jayden Daniels that I see from Drake May and Caleb. That's all that it is. And I don't think he's on the same level as Drake May, because Drake May, let me put it like this. Drake May is a lot closer to Jayden Daniels in terms of the athleticism and what he can do with his legs than Jayden Daniels is to Drake May with his arm and his accuracy. You know what I mean? So while I think Jayden Daniels is a great player, deserves to go, I would not be mad at all if he went in the top 3. I just don't think talent for talent, he's as good as some of these other players. But that being said, let's talk about what he does well. He is generational again. He is a generational talent with his legs at the quarterback position. And he's also improved significantly year after year with his arm. And I think that is very impressive. And I think just a couple of spots where I think the Vikings trading up to 3 to get him would make a lot of sense. I think the Raiders trading up for him would also make sense. I think the Commanders just taking him over Drake May, it's a good fit for him. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's a good fit for Jayden Daniels specifically. Taking a look at his stats, look at that. 3 years ago at Arizona State, he was not a good quarterback. And then year one at LSU, he flipped the switch, had a very, very good year. And then last season, the breakout year. You could even argue one of the best Heisman seasons ever in only 12 games. They're damn near 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. Incredibly impressive. The efficiency, incredibly impressive. But unfortunately for Jayden Daniels, I do think he will get chosen at 3. I don't think the Patriots will trade the pick. I think they'll fall in love with Jayden Daniels. I think he'll be cursed of going to the Patriots and struggling and ultimately failing in the NFL. And when I say failing, it's not going to have anything to do with him. It's going to be because the Patriots are now one of the worst run organizations in sports, and they are incapable of getting offensive players. Who the hell is a receiver on the Patriots? KJ Osborne? Demario Douglas? Like this is what you're going to give Tyquan Thornton. That's what you're going to give a young QB. Look what the Bears did. Get Keenan Allen. You know what I mean? Like, look what the Texans did. Get Stephon Diggs for their young QB. Like, the Patriots are incapable of making moves that are going to make it easier for a young QB. And I just feel like Jayden Daniels are going to get stuck with the Patriots. And I hope he figures it out. But honestly, I doubt it, man. Next, we got Olu Fashanu, the second best tackle in my opinion. He's kind of had a fall from grace in the mock drafts, I guess, lately. Like, he was a consistent top 8, top 9 guy, and now he's going in like 15, 16. I still think he's one of those top guys. I still think he's going to go in the top 10. What do I say about Olu Fashanu? He's very good in pass protection, and that's what is most important. You look at his PFF grade, it's nowhere near what Joe Alt's was, but it was very, very good in pass protection. It's just he was not as good graded in the run game. But look at 20 games, about 1,300 or 12,500 snaps. Did not give up a sack. which is very impressive in the Big Ten. Played against Michigan twice, Ohio State twice, things like that. So he did not give up a sack, 20 games, not as experienced as a guy like Joe Alt, but still a great pass protector, could play left tackle day one, I believe. And that's why I think a team like the Jets is going to take him at number 10 because look at the Jets. They made some acquisitions to get some older, experienced tackles like Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith, but Tyron Smith is completely injury prone, and you just need depth at tackle. You need a long term solution at tackle. And I think uh, Olu Fashanu is that guy who could come in, play day one if someone gets hurt, but 5 years on the line, 10 years on the line, he could still be there at left tackle for you. Next up, we got Nate Wiggins. This cornerback class is very, very good. There are like 4 or 5 guys which I truly just think are very good players, and I think are all deserving of going in the top 20. But I just think Nate Wiggins is the best. I get a lot of Christian Gonzalez vibes from Nate Wiggins. He's not as big as Gonzalez, but I think he is as athletic as him. He's very young too, Nate Wiggins. Um, and I like him because he's kind of not as talked about as some of these other guys. He was a hard-nosed player, kept his head down at Clemson, years of experience. Well, not that he's not that old, but multiple good years of film and production. And I think his best fits would be the Vikings at 11, Jaguars at 17, Colts at 15. Any of these 3 spots I feel like need corner and could use Nate Wiggins desperately. And those are his stats. 23 games last 2 years, 20 or 19 passes defended, 3 picks. I think he's going to go to the Jaguars at 17. So I don't think he'll be the first cornerback taken, but I do think he'll be the best cornerback from the draft class. That is my prediction for Nate Wiggins. Next, we got Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. CB2 for me. A little bit shorter than Nate Wiggins, but a little bit stockier. You know, he is still athletic. You know, use all the white cornerback jokes now, but I think the Raiders could pick him up at 13, Colts at 15, Jaguars at 17. All these teams in the teens could really use cornerback, and it's all just going to be seeing where they fall, really. I don't think a cornerback's going to go in the top 10, but as soon as the Vikings pick at 11, I think it's on the table. So from there to 20, I think we're going to see like 4 or 5 cornerbacks possibly taken in that range. Cooper DeJean, I think, is the second best, though. Take a look at his stats. He is extremely explosive, and he makes a lot of plays as a DB that is just like kind of like it's hard to believe, you know what I mean? Like he is a factor as a DB that other players just aren't. It's hard to explain, but he was electric. He provides so much in special teams as a returner that I got to mention here that these other guys I just don't think they do that. So keep that in mind. He is a weapon when you draft this guy, and his versatility. I say it a lot, but his versatility is what separates him. This guy could play nickel outside, free or strong safety, which is just ridiculous to think about. I think the Colts are going to take him at 15. You know, I think they're going to value that athleticism, that versatility, and I just think Cooper DeJean is just that good of a player. Next, we got Brian Thomas at 14 here. Wide receiver number 4, which just shows you how stacked of a wide receiver class this is. His frame and his speed combo is insane. It makes him arguably, besides Rome Odunze, the best deep threat in the entire class. And there are so many spots where I think he could go. Literally, like I could name you 10 spots where I think he could drafted. But the Colts at 15, I like that spot. The Bengals at 18, I believe, I think it's a very good spot. And the Cowboys, whether they trade up or just stick and pick. Last mock draft had the Cowboys trading up with the Seahawks to get Brian Thomas. But there's a lot of every team could use Brian Thomas. Taking a look at his stats, it's very similar actually to the Jalen Hyatt situation from a year ago, where Jalen Hyatt kind of came out of nowhere, led the country in touchdowns. Very similar stats actually to Jalen Hyatt, but I just think he is, because of his frame, I think he's a different type of prospect than Hyatt. You know what I mean? So I think he is gonna go. And yeah, speaking of Jalen Hyatt, by the way, do you want to talk about a guy who fell in the draft and should have went a lot higher? I think I was right about that in hindsight. But Brian Thomas, I'm sure is going to go in the first round. I'm almost positive he's going to go in the top 20. Just don't know where. But I do think a team like the Cowboys could easily trade up for him. And man, wherever he goes, he's going to be explosive and he's going to make plays as a rookie. Next up, you got Jared Verse out of FSU, edge number 3. Similar to Laiatu Latu, I think he's a pure D end, a little older as well. Very similar to Laiatu Latu, but I don't think he is as refined as a pass rusher. He's great in the run game, great in the run game and the pass game, very consistent, but I just don't think he's on the same level as some of those other guys. I think the Seahawks at 16, Cowboys, Buccaneers could all love to use him. I hello, hello, hello. Okay, sorry. Knew the headset was gonna die. It's a guarantee. But I just for some reason I always have either Jared Verse or Leatu Latu falling in the draft and falling to like the mid to late 20s. I don't know how that happens, but it always happens for some reason because I just don't think in that 11 to 20 like range. I don't see a spot for an edge rusher really compared to these other positions. I see a lot of tackle. I see a lot of cornerback. I just don't see as many edge rusher in that range. I could be wrong. Jared Verse could easily go in the top 15, 20. Like Leatu Latu and Verse could both go in the teens, but I just don't see it. But if he does, I'd be shocked because I have him going to the Buccaneers in the 20s. That'd be a steal, man. Jared Verse, 18 sacks the last 2 years, almost 30 tackles for a loss. Like I said, he's great in the run game, great in the pass game. People, for some reason, were saying like they were disappointed last season in Jared Verse. I thought he was going to take like a big step up, but he had 9 sacks back to back years. So I'm not really taking that into account. I think he had a good year last season. I do think he's definitely worth going in the top 20, but I just think he's going to fall for some reason. The Buccaneers would be happy, elated to take him in the mid 20s at their pick. Next, we got Terrion Arnold, CB3. Possibly had the best season for any cornerback in the country last season. We'll get into that. Very young. A lot of these cornerbacks are 21 or younger. Not as impressive of a frame, but like if you see how he's built, like he's good. Like he's like exactly what you want out of a cornerback, right? Very strong. And it's the same range, but I do think it's a little further, like 5 picks separated from like Nate Williams, the Cooper DeJeans, a couple picks back from that. I think the Eagles and Steelers are both in play for Arnold, whereas I don't think these other guys are going to fall into that range. But I think the Jaguars would also love to have him at 17. I love the physicality he plays with. I think he does so much in the run game that these other guys don't. Like a lot of these guys are going to be weaknesses, I guess you could say, in the run game. I don't see that for Terrion Arnold. I would compare him if I had to. Compare him to somebody from last year's class would be Devon Witherspoon, just in his play style. And like look at those stats from last season. It was amazing. He should have been first team all American last season. But yeah, I think the Eagles, that would be a steal, man. That would be a great pick for the Eagles to pick him up and eventually probably start day one and then be just your guy moving forward for years and years and years. So Terrion Arnold, great player. I think the Eagles would be the best fit for him and where he would go. Next, we got Michael Penix. I have a mid first round grade on Penix. I am not buying all this shit that McCarthy's been. I'm just not going to believe that until I see it in the NFL. I refuse to believe that McCarthy is better than Michael Penix, because he just does so many things well. He has weaknesses, right? But the two this is what really bugs me. The two biggest things that people hold against Michael Penix, right, are his injury history. That is just false. He passed all his physicals. He was given the thumbs up by every doctor. He has no injury concerns. That's a myth for Michael Penix. Did he get injured in the past? Yeah. He hasn't missed a game the last 2 seasons. So the injury history is a myth. It's fake. It's false. It's fake news. It's false. And then the second thing is his age. His age is a problem. That's just retarded to me, honestly. If you're holding his age against Michael Penix when he's like the same age as Jayden Daniels is just crazy to me. He is an amazing player. If we talk about Michael Penix's faults, right? Can we just talk about his actual on the field problems instead of just these abstract things that don't actually exist? He does not handle pressure well. That's one of his weaknesses, right? He's not as athletic. He's probably the least athletic guy out of the big 6 quarterbacks, right? That's a problem, right? But he utilized his legs, right, when he had to. So I don't think it's going to be, it's just, think of all the good quarterbacks in the NFL that don't necessarily use their legs like that. Like Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. Like these guys aren't abnormally athletic, but they're able to use their legs to get out of trouble. I think that's what Michael Penix can do, right? His strength, though, is his arm. Incredibly accurate, great deep ball. You know, it's just thread the needle. I just he's a great player, man, and I think he absolutely deserves to go in the top 20. I just don't know where. The Vikings obviously is the best fit for anybody. The Raiders to compete with Gardner Minshew is a great spot. And I heard Joel Klatt say this. I don't think it's going to happen, but man, the Dolphin tell me that Michael Penix or Bo Nix for that matter in the Dolphins system would not be just a match made in heaven, right? Get the ball out quick, like lefty quarterback. That's not a problem. Like, man, if the Dolphins just didn't want to pay Tua, just fucking draft Michael Penix. That would be an amazing fit for Penix and the Dolphins, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Taking a look at Michael Penix's stats the last 2 seasons, man, it's great. It's great. I don't know how you can hate on it. He was a Heisman contender both seasons. Um, Obviously, we know what he did in the playoff. That Michigan game, I don't hold that against him, man. His offensive line did not do so well. He missed a couple of throws. That is totally true. He missed a couple of throws in the Michigan game. But if you're going to hold that against him playing the best defense in the country, it is what it is. I get the Raiders taking him. I just think, I think it makes the most sense out of all these teams. Do the Vikings take him? I wish they would, but it doesn't seem like it. The Broncos, I hope not. I really hope the Broncos and the Patriots, man. Those are the two worst situations. I hope they don't take any quarterback because I want all these guys, take McCarthy. Broncos and the Patriots, I want McCarthy, take McCarthy. But yeah, I hope Penix goes to a good situation because I'm a fan. But it's tough, man. I really don't know where he's going to go. Next, we got Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State. I have him a little lower than other people. I can see why. I think he's a really good player, but I don't see him as this top level tackle. But I do think he deserves to go in the top 15. We'll get into that. But big guy, physical guy out of Oregon State, nasty, great in the run game, a lot of experience as well. He's been a starter for 3 straight years, and I think the Saints at 14 is the best spot for him. The Saints, my Seahawks, I'd love for him to go with my Seahawks. The Steelers as well. There's so many good fits for him. I think there's no way he gets out of the top 20, but I don't see him going like some of these other people have him going like the top 10, top 12. I don't see that. But like I said, Saints taking him, I'd love it. And his PFF grade, man, look at that. 1,500 plus snaps, no sacks allowed, graded very highly on PFF. Great, very highly last season. But he's a right tackle. He's not a left tackle. And some people even talk about him moving to guard. I don't see that. I think he's an NFL right tackle. But I think the Saints would take him and have him start day one. And I think he could start day one and play very, very well. Next, we got Johnny Newton out of Illinois. He is still my DT1. He has been my DT1 the entire time, but for some reason, as of late, Byron Murphy has kind of climbed up the draft boards. I'll be honest, I don't really see Byron Murphy as this NFL star. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I think Johnny Newton's a much better prospect, right? 21 years old, 6'2", almost 300 pounds. He's a little bit short, a little bit small for a deep tackle, but I don't really think that matters. Look at Kalash Kansky, for example. He came in and played well day one. So I don't think the size is really an issue for Johnny Newton. If anything, it gives him more versatility to play inside and out a little bit, like Leonard Williams, for example. So I think my Seahawks, misspelled Seahawks, could use him at 16, Bengals at 18, and Rams to replace Aaron Donald. All of those are great fits in my opinion. I do think the Rams, though, will take him and make him the first D tackle off the board to replace Aaron Donald. Look at his stats. Keep in mind, by the way, for Johnny Newton, he had 2 more sacks than the year before, played less games, and lost a lot of talent on that Illinois defense from last year to this year. So that's very impressive in my opinion. Like the defense got worse, the team got worse. He had more attention drawn to him, and he still managed to produce more in terms of sacks and getting after the quarterback. So I think Johnny Newton is the best interior defensive lineman from this class. I think he is able to generate pressure better than a guy like Byron Murphy, for example. And I think he'll be the best defensive tackle from this class 10 years from now. Next, we got Quinyon Mitchell. This might seem, a lot of people got Mitchell in the top 12, 15, and I understand that he played so well postseason at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, stuff like that. But I still think he's a little bit behind these other guys, but I do think he's going to go in the top 20. Frame, good frame, no issues with his size, weight, anything like that. 22 years old, so a little older than some of these other guys, but that's not really an issue in my opinion. Getting into his stats, He plays the most aggressive and takes the most chances out of any cornerback in the class. But because of that, he has 37 passes defended the last 2 years. That's a crazy number, man. 37 passes defended, 6 picks. I like the way he plays, honestly. Some guys are risk takers, some guys play it safe, and we usually hear about the risk takers more. You know what I mean? He's gonna have a lot of big plays in the NFL, and he's gonna get burnt a lot. You know what I mean? He might be the Emmanuel Forbes of this class. We don't know yet. But Quinyon Mitchell, I'll say this: if we're talking about boom or bust, Quinyon Mitchell is one of those guys. I made that video last year. I might make one this year. Boom or bust players, Quinyon Mitchell might be one of those guys, honestly, where he could be an all pro or out of the league in 4 or 5 years. I could definitely see that for him. And I don't know where it's going to swing at this point, but I think the Raiders are a great spot for him at 13. They need cornerback. They did not address cornerback like I would have liked them to this offseason. I think getting Quinyon Mitchell would solve a lot of their problems in their secondary. I already had Penix to the Raiders, but I don't know. I could have multiple teams for multiple players. Bo Nix at 21. I do think I have a mid to late first round grade on him. I do think he deserves to go in the first round. He is a little older. He does not have the most spectacular arm. He does not have the biggest frame. He is not the most athletic, but he does a lot of things well. He gets the ball out quickly. He is athletic enough, more than enough athletically. He uses his legs a lot and uses them well. He extends plays in the pocket. He has a good arm. You know what I mean? He's very accurate. You know what I mean? He doesn't throw that many deep balls, but I think when he does, he throws them well. Um, do I think he could come into the NFL and start day one? It depends on where he goes. If he goes to the Vikings, yes. If he goes to the Raiders, yes. If he goes to the Giants, probably not. If he goes to the Broncos, probably not. If he goes to the Patriots, I'll pray he doesn't go to the Patriots. But, I don't think he's as good as these other guys, but I still think he's a very good quarterback. And I think his stats in high school, I would say, the way he played in college was so impressive. He probably had the best back-to-back seasons of any quarterback on this list. Think about all the other guys on this list. Compare them to Bo Nix stats. Bo Nix is the best, clearly. His completion percentage. And people hold, this is what I don't like. People hold his play style in college against him and say, like, it can't translate to the NFL. This is unreal. You know what can't translate to the NFL? You know what cannot translate from college to the NFL? Handing the ball off 30 times a game and throwing 10 passes in big games. JJ McCarthy. That's what can't translate. But what can translate for Bo Nix is getting the ball out quickly, targeting your best players consistently, using your legs to pick up first downs. That's what will work in the NFL because that's what Bo Nix did in college frequently. And I love his decision making. I love his accuracy. I love his poise. I love his athleticism. Like, the more I talk about it, the better of a prospect Bo Nix sounds. And I think he is worth it, honestly. I think the Giants in the second round, the Patriots in the second round, a team like the Broncos or Raiders trading back into the first round to get him. There's a lot of possibilities. I don't think he's going to go in the top 20 or 25, but I do think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback because I just think he's done it all in college. He's the most experienced college quarterback ever. So I like Bo Nix, man. I really like Bo Nix as a prospect. Next, we got J.C. Latham, tackle number 4, consistent starter at Alabama, great size. Let's just get straight into the stats before we get into the stats. Saints at 14, Bengals at 18, Dolphins in the 20s, all places I could see him going. I do think he's going to go to the Bengals, though, at 18. Bengals a similar situation to the Jets, but they picked up some veterans. They picked up, like, Trent Brown, for example, from the Patriots, but it's a one-year deal. They need a long-term solution at tackle. I think J.C. Latham is that solution. Look at that experience, man. Almost or over 1,700 snaps at right tackle the last 2 years and only 2 sacks allowed, man. Graded very highly on PFF, good in the pass and the run game. Like, I think he's a great prospect, a really, really great prospect as a tackle. And I could see him going a lot of places, but I don't think he's better than Fuaga. I don't think he's better than Olufashanu. So I think he's going to fall more into that later teens area. Speaking of tackle, we got Troy Fautanu, tackle number 5 out of Washington. He's a little older. Some of these other guys, a little smaller in terms of size and hand or arm length. That's big for these tackles. And I think Troy Fautanu has the best chance of maybe being a guard in the NFL at first, like a guard and then transitioning to tackle after a year or two. So I think considering that, the best spots for him would be the Seahawks and the Dolphins to play guard right away. or maybe the Eagles to play right tackle because I don't think he's a left tackle in the NFL. I think his arm length is just not big enough compared to some of these other guys. But look at what he did in college, man. Uh, the most experienced guy. Compare his amount of games and snaps to all the other tackles, most experienced. Like almost 1,900 snaps played the last 2 years. Graded well on PFF. Only 2 sacks allowed at left tackle as well. So he was a great left tackle in college. Probably won't be able to play that in the NFL, but I think he'll be able to transition. I think the Dolphins picking him up to play right guard right away, replace Robert Hunt, or maybe left guard, whoever, replace Robert Hunt day one, and then transition him to tackle. That's a great decision, I think. And I think the Dolphins would be the best fit for him. Next, we got Jackson Powers Johnson, best center, best interior offensive lineman in the whole class. Not much to talk about for center, but the Steelers are a great fit. Seahawks are a great fit. Cowboys lost their center. That would be a boring but a great pick for the Cowboys. Taking a look at him in college, not as experienced, honestly. He's kind of moved around a little bit. Last season he was a right guard for a little bit, but this season he was the primary center, and he played great for Oregon. He was a big part of why that offensive line was so dominant, back-to-back years really, but mainly last season. Did not give up a sack, graded very, very highly on PFF. So, yeah, I do think he's a guy that kind of postseason started, everybody started talking about him as a first-round pick. I didn't really get it, but now that I take a closer look at it, I do think he's going to go in the top 26 to 27 picks. Cowboys, Steelers, Seahawks, all those teams could use a center. Next, we got Graham Barton, tackle out of Duke. Great size, a lot of versatility. It's that same range, that late teens to early 20s. I think Graham Barton, Troy Fautanu, Jackson Powers Johnson, all these guys are going to go in that same area. Taking a look at him, did not play as much, especially last season, as some of these other guys, and he gave up 2 sacks and under 500 snaps. That's not great. I don't think he'll be a left tackle in the NFL. When I see Graham Barton, I see a right tackle or just a guy that could play really anywhere. So that's what he's great at, right? I think the Seahawks, if we could trade back and possibly get him, would be great for us. But yeah, I think Graham Barton is not as high as a Troy Fautanu or a Jackson Powers Johnson, for example. Next up, we got Kool-Aid McKinstry, and this is tough, man. This is tough because I really did like Kool-Aid McKinstry as a prospect for a long time, and I still do. But for some reason, postseason, I think it's because of his injury, he has just been shooting down draft boards, and I have to respect that and put him lower. But if you were to ask me, one guy on this list where I think if I would look back and say I had really underrated, it would be Kool-Aid McKinstry. Whatever team gets him in the later 20s, I'm going to call it one of the steals of the draft because that's just how confident I am in him kind of proving everybody wrong and being good in the NFL. His frame, his size, his speed, his ability to, stay in phase with receivers. He's so good already. And I just think if he goes to the right situation, man, the Eagles would be a great spot for him. The Cardinals, I think the Bucks, it's just if he goes to the right spot, I'm very confident that he'll play well in the NFL. Taking a look at him, it wasn't as good last season from 2022. That's the truth. I didn't look at the cornerbacks PFF grades or whatever, but I think the Packers would be a great fit, an amazing fit for Kool-Aid to go and be. I've talked about it a lot in the mock drafts where some of these guys go to a situation where you don't have to be the number one corner. The Packers, they already got Jair. Be a number two. Could Kool-Aid be an amazing number two? Absolutely. That would be a great spot for Kool-Aid, and it would kind of alleviate some of the expectations that he would have if he went to some of these other spots like Arizona. So, yeah, that's, I think, the best spot that Kool-Aid could go. Next, we got Amarius Mims out of Georgia. He's a guy where the potential is through the roof, but the experience and the production is not really there, right? His size is freakish. He's incredibly young. The traits, you could see them potentially mold, right? And I think the Bengals, Steelers, Cowboys, we already talked about the offensive line. He's in that range, but only about 600 to 700 snaps played at Georgia last week. It's not enough. He did not play enough at Georgia for me to confidently say that, he's going to be this top pick. So I think he could slip a little bit. And I think if he does slip, the Ravens, great spot. The Ravens, for some reason, completely just let every offensive lineman they had walk. So they have to build it through the draft now. And if they did, Amarius Mims, that's a great prospect, man. That is a great potential guy who, if you develop him right, could be dominant as a tackle. And that's I can't say it about some of these other guys. Like I don't think Graham Barton's ever gonna be dominant. I don't think Troy Fatanu's ever gonna be dominant. But I think Amarius Mims, he has that potential in him. As a left tackle too, not a right tackle. AD Mitchell, 28. Uh I do think AD Mitchell, by the way, great size, great contested catchability, great deep threat down the field. He does all that very well. I think AD Mitchell, what he does, or something about him that I think is unique, is I think he's going to be a better NFL receiver than a college receiver. And what do I mean when I say that? Look at what he did in college. Did not really do much at Georgia. He was not this dominant guy. And at Texas last season, he had a good year, but 845 yards in 14 games. That's really that's not that impressive, especially compared to some of these other guys. But I do think a team in the 20s is going to take him. If you went to a team like the Bills, for example, he is just going to be a seamless fit. A seamless fit. Plug him right in. Guy like Josh Allen throwing to him is just a match made in heaven. And I really think that as a rookie, even he could put up more yards as a rookie than he did last season at Texas. And I say that confidently. He's just a guy where I think his frame and his size and his skill set is almost more built for the NFL to use him properly than a team like Texas. So, yeah, I think the Bills should take him with their first round pick if he's available. And I think he'd do incredibly well as a rookie. Another Texas player, we got Byron Murphy the second. I just don't see it, honestly. I think he's a good player, good prospect, but I do not see him, especially compared to a guy like Jer'Zhan Newton. I just don't think they stack up the same. And, he's even shorter than Jer'Zhan Newton. So you can't say like, oh, Johnny Newton has size concerns and Byron Murphy, but he's good. They both are a little shorter for a normal defensive tackle. So, and I don't think Byron Murphy is as good of a pass rusher as Johnny Newton. So that's two concerns I have for Byron Murphy. But I do think Rams, Bengals, Seahawks, all these teams could use him because I think he is a first round. I used the same fucking picture, of course I did. He is a first round caliber defensive tackle, but he really only had one season of production, and even that season was not incredibly impressive. So I'm a little concerned. I would not want my team to draft him. He's a guy that I'm concerned. A guy like Byron Murphy could turn into a Jerry Tillery or a Taven Bryant, a guy like that. That's a concern I have for Byron Murphy, just a low ceiling, I guess. Next, we got Ladd McConkey, Georgia receiver. Very, very similar to AD Mitchell. Not play style, not size, nothing like that. But in terms of, I just think I know if he goes to the right spot, he will be so much better in the NFL than in college. And just imagine for a second, if he went to the Panthers with Bryce Young and he kind of just took over that Adam Thielen role, then I mean it's an instant fit, right? Look at what he did last season at Georgia when he was healthy. 900 yards, 9 touchdowns, and a run first offense, right? Only 65 touches. He's an explosive type player. People just look at a white receiver and they think, oh, stick him in the slot, he'll be fine. No, he makes explosive plays. He is a deep threat. He's a great route runner. He gets separated downfield. And that's what he's going to do in the NFL, I think. This season he was hurt, so he was not as productive, but you still saw him make plays, man. Down the field, explosive. So I think teams are going to see that. And I'm very confident Ladd McConkey is going to go in the top 20 or top 35, sorry, and maybe even in the first round. Next, we got Chop Robinson. This is the one where I'm kind of taking the biggest shot in the dark at because his production in college was not really there, but the athleticism jumps off the screen, right? And for these teams that need pass rushers, Ravens at the end of the first round, Cardinals at the end of the first round, Commanders at the top of the second round, I think Chop Robinson is a great option for them. But I think the Titans would actually be a good spot for him. They lost Nico Autry to the Texans, and just talking about getting a young guy in there, 22 games, 9.5 sacks, not that impressive, right? He's not that good against the run either. He's kind of a designated pass rusher that you're hoping you can develop and turn his speed into production. So you're taking a shot. So I don't think he's going to go in the first round, but in terms of potential, he's definitely on my top 32. And then next up, we got Tyler Nubin, the best safety in the class, widely considered to be. I think the Packers is a good fit for him. I think the Commanders at the top of the second round is a good fit for him. I don't think he's going to go in the first round, but that top of the second round, I think some team is definitely going to take a shot on him because he was very good in college. Only 23 games played, 9 picks in 23 games. Incredibly impressive. He was solid against the run, but he's a ball hawk, man. He makes plays, big plays in the secondary. So I think the Commanders would love to take him with one of their first, second round picks. I think it'd be a good pick for them. And whatever team gets him, I think he's going to be a good, solid starting safety for a long time. Man, so that's the video. That was a long one. Pause. But leave a like if you enjoyed, man. I think my next video is going to be another fucking mock draft. I mean, it's coming, man. It's very, very soon. So leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
It's out the motherfucking pack. Right out the niggas don't know how to act.